So continuing from yesterday, we spoke about how do we get the rulings in our deen? Where do laws come from? We spoke about the different sources of law, which is Quran, Sunnah, Ijma, Qiyas. That's really what we talked about. There's more, but we're just going to leave it at that. So that's a more complex discussion that we had yesterday. Today is going to be a really interesting discussion, inshallah. What the categories of the laws that we have. Okay? Let's see how far we get into it, inshallah. So there are two broad categories of law. One are the laws of what are called ibadat, the worship, laws of worship, and then there is the laws of muamalat, the laws of dealings, like getting married or renting something, contracts, making a contract, laws for that. Those are called muamalat. Those are we will study them inshallah later on, but we're going to start with most books of fiqh. They always start with ibadat, the worship, the laws of worship. That makes sense, right? That makes sense? Okay, great. So those are the two main categories of law. Now, what I'm going to talk about right now applies to both, which are what types. We lose sometimes, vocabulary escapes us, but there's types of laws. One dimension is what categories they have. We have worship and not related to worship. Then we have different categories. For example, what is a commandment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and what is a prohibition of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so commandments and prohibitions. Commandments are called amr, prohibitions are called nahi for the Arabs, that you would understand. Okay. Commandments, scholars divide into different types, and the prohibitions, scholars divide into different types. Everybody with me so far? Okay, or maybe I need a board or something. Okay. Omar, you understand what I'm saying? Okay, good. So how many different commandments do we have? Two types. One is amr, which is commandment to do, and the nahi, which is not to do. Right? Okay. The commandment to do is of two types. Now we're going to go deeper a little bit. Okay? Now this is where the fun begins. And everybody knows this. There's fard, things you must do, and things you should do. Okay? Things that you must do and things that you should do. Things that you must do, if you don't do it, you will be sinful. Okay? You will be punished for it. And things that you should do, if you don't do them, you will not be punished for. Everybody with me right now? Okay. I'm just giving you a high-level overview, then we're going to go into deeper. This is all coming from the book. I'm just slowly reading it. I'm just going to painting a map in your head. Things that you shouldn't do are also of two types. Things that you must not do and things you should not do. Right? So things that you must not do, if you do them, you are sinful. It's the opposite, right? And if you should not do them, if you don't do them in general, you're not sinful, but you shouldn't do them. Everybody with me right now? So 4 categories. Everything else is what we call halal or mubah, which is everything. Now, let's talk about the do's. I'm not going to talk about the don'ts, okay? I'm going to talk about the do's. The do's, we all know of them as two things. We all have heard these terms all our lives. One is called fard, and one is called Sunnah, you can say. But they all have different names. And that's what I wanted to introduce to you today. Today maybe we'll just talk about those two sections and we'll end inshallah. Fard, scholars define, so remember the sources of the law, Quran and Sunnah? Okay, so for example, is Hajj fard? What is the evidence for it? It's in the Quran, right? And then, for example, fasting the month of Ramadan is kutiba alaykum as-siyam kama kutiba. The fasting has been ordained for you. Anyways, so there's some clear evidences for the fara'id, but for the this is the things that you must do. Okay, things that you should do, there's difference. There's different categories. Why are they should do and not must do? These are all categories all scholars came up with later. They didn't exist at the time of the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? In an essence, they didn't exist. Conceptually, they existed. For example, Rasulullah ﷺ said, whoever prays the rawatib, it's not the exact words, like the sunnahs before and after the salah, if you pray them, you will get a house in Jannah. It's an encouragement to do an action. It is not a commandment to do an action, right? But the salah, there's a specific commandment. Like, for example, one of the Bedouins came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is basically, in a nutshell, he said, what is the minimum that I need to do? And he asked about all of the 5 pillars. I'm just talking about salah, for example. He's like, you have to pray the 5 prayers. So that's a minimum you have to do. But extra is extra. Okay? So just roughly speaking, the must do, there's pretty clear indications what the must do is. The should do, there's some clear indications and there's some gray areas. Okay. The things that you must do, the fard, has another name. Have you heard of wajib? Okay, what's the difference between fard and wajib? So this is where the interesting part comes. According to anybody other than the Hanafis, so other than Abu Hanifa, Maliki, Shafi'i, Hanbali, fard and wajib is exactly the same thing. They're synonyms. They mean exactly the same thing. Fard and wajib. Okay, so when you hear some Arab who's a non-Hanafi, there's Arabs that are Hanafis too, by the way. Right? Arabs that are not Hanafi, they will say wajib, they mean fard. Okay, so you have to kind of know that, and you have to ask them, what do you mean? Do you mean fard or the other fard? Okay, so fard is the must do. Okay, fard, wajib. In Hanafis, they break up the fard into 2 different levels. They say fard is what you must do because it has absolutely clear evidence in the Quran and the Sunnah. So that makes it absolute fard. But the other one, the wajib, is there is not super clear evidence, but there's a lot of evidence that you must always do it. But there's not super clear evidence. Okay, so for example, what is the famous wajib everybody has heard of? Let me hear it. Yeah, the 2 rakahs of Fajr. Yes, there's so much that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam encouraged, and he never missed the 2 rakahs of Fajr. Even when he was traveling, he never missed 2 rakahs of Fajr. Okay. What is the other one? Witr, exactly. So the Hanafis make the witr wajib, which means if you don't do it, you will be sinful. Because Rasulullah ﷺ recommended it so much that if you're not doing it, you're not following the Prophet. Okay, this is a Hanafi categorization, which is actually, if you academically look at it, it's a really good category. It's really good categorizations. The others, they put the sunnah of Fajr and the witr in the should do category, not the must do category. Okay, and that's a valid way to look at it too. But the Hanafis, they break it into 2 separate categories. Is that clear now? Any questions on this? You want me to continue? Okay. All right. Now let's talk about the should do category. Okay, so we already talked about the should do. Anything that is not fard but it's still something we should do is should do. It has multiple names. It has multiple names. We say nafila or nafl or nawafil, right? Nawafil is just a plural of nafl. Nafl, the word means what? It means extra. That's all it means. Okay? It means addition. Addition to. Okay? It has another name. Tatawwu. You probably haven't heard of it. The Arabs are familiar with this term. It means voluntary. And another thing, Mandub. Mandub means something that is recommended to do. Okay, it has that name too. They're all the same. All these things mean the same thing. Mustahab is another term. Mustahab. Mugharrab, I learned as well, is another one. It's another. Mustahab means preferred. Mugharrab means something that you should long to do, something you should want to do, right? And it has one other name that I haven't said yet. Nobody has caught on. Sunnah. Okay. It also falls in that should do category. Okay, Sunnah. Now, why is Sunnah special? Now, this Sunnah is different from the Sunnah we talked about yesterday. Remember what we said? What is the definition of Sunnah? Sunnah is everything that we understand our Sharia to be. All the laws is Sunnah. Now here, in the case of the rulings, the Sunnah has a different meaning. Sunnah just means something that Rasulullah ﷺ did often. Okay? That's when the term Sunnah is used. Something that he recommended to do. Now, it's all in the should do category. But Hanafis, as usual, they break the Sunnah into two categories. Okay? So, Sunnah, Mandub, Mustahab, Nafl, Tatawwu, all of this I'm talking about, into two categories. One is the Sunnah that it's called Muakkadah. Sunnah that there's ta'keed, you should do it. Okay? And then the other one is Ghayr Muakkadah, which is something that you can do or not do, it's up to you. Okay? So they define it, Hanafis define it, Sunnah Muakkadah is a Sunnah, it's a should do category. You will not be punished for it, but somebody will blame you for it. It's like, why aren't you doing this? Right? And the other one is an extra. So in the Desi culture and some other cultures, we call this Sunnah and Nafl. We break that into two categories. The Sunnah is Muakkadah, is what people mean. And Nafl means Ghayr Muakkadah. The things that you shouldn't. So for example, what? So what is the Sunnah? If I say Sunnah Muakkadah, what is an example? Yeah, that's in the Wajib category in Hanafis. Yeah, but in the other one you can say it's Muakkadah, right? Correct. Also, witr, you can say it's Sunnah Muakkadah in the other schools, the non-Hanafi schools. What are the famous Muakkadah examples? It is the rawatib, the sunnahs before and after the salahs, right? Two rakahs after Maghrib is Muakkadah. Why is it Muakkadah? Rasulullah ﷺ encouraged people to pray those. And anything beyond that, it's optional for you. It's Tatawwu, it's Nawafil, it's extra for you. You can pray as many as you want to. You can pray 20 after Maghrib. That's completely okay. It's up to you. 50, it's up to you. You can pray until Isha time, right? You can do that. So that's Ghayr Muakkadah. Even in the salah, when we inshallah, Allah gives us an opportunity, we get into the salah discussions. There are things that are sunnah and things that are fard. Okay? And we will talk about what those are. For example, reciting Fatiha is fard, wajib, right? You have to. But reciting a surah after Fatiha is sunnah muakkadah, you can say, or just sunnah in general. It's extra. It's extra. You don't have to do it. Your rak'ah is still complete if you don't do it. But is it recommended? No, because your salah is not like of the Prophet ﷺ. The laws of fiqh are super complicated. Okay, like there's millions of laws. Okay, and if you kind of put all the schools together, no single person can stand up here. I don't care how big the sheikh is. I don't care. You can ask like Sheikh Ninawi and 10 times Sheikh Ninawi. They will be expert in one school, not all the schools. Or maybe max 2 schools, but they cannot be really, they can't be experts in 2 schools. They can be expert if they say in one, but they kind of know the other. So you know that title, Mufti, Mufti this, Mufti that, you know that title? They are trained in Fiqh in Hanafi school. That's when they call themselves Mufti. They're trained in the details, you can say, because it's quite a long degree. I think it's a 10-year degree, at least 7 years, if not 10 years, I believe. They get expertise just in the Hanafi school. So if you go and ask a Mufti about Shafi'i, he'll likely not know the details. Okay? I just wanted to give you an idea of the categories. So today we just talked about, just summary. There are 2 types of laws. There's the laws of worship, ibadat, and laws of muamalat, which is everything other than ibadat. And then in the in all of them, there are do's and don'ts. In the do's, we have the must do and the should do, right? In the must do, we have 2 more, right? We have the and according to Hanafi, it's broken into 2. It's fard and wajib. And in the should do, according to Hanafis, there's 2 levels, which is Muakkadah and Ghayr Muakkadah. Clear?
So Sunnah,
This is a summary. Yeah.
so Sunnah and Nawafil, other than Hanafi, Fiqh,
It's all extra.
and it's almost the same. Almost the same.
What do you mean almost?
Meaning twice. Meaning.
Yes, it means exactly the same. It's extra, it's non-fard. So the other schools, non-Hanafi schools, they don't consider you sinful if you never prayed extra rak'at before or after the fard salah. You will not, they don't consider you sinful because it's extra. And there's good reason to say that. There's very good reason to say that. But we'll leave that for advanced topics. Yeah? Questions? More questions? Sure. Some things will generally be true in all schools. And remember how we got the schools, right? Everybody has their methodology from the sources and then they derive.